dismembered, decapitated. It's probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
To Life with Elise.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime, the good, the bad, the horrific, the conspiracies from time to time. We talk about it all. So if you're brand new stopping by for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy today's video and hit that subscribe button below. And for you returning subscribers, you already know what it is we do here, so welcome back. Now, I usually start this by saying the case we're going to be talking about today. But today, I got something a little different for you. I've got a double header. That's what it's called, right? A double header. It's two cases wrapped up into one. And without giving too much away yet, because I of course want to give you all of the details before we get to, boom, the ending, it is extremely fascinating, and it really does highlight crime on campus. And we know that that is a widespread epidemic right now in this country. As I was researching facts for this case and putting everything together, I came across a really interesting documentary that highlighted these cases. And what was so fascinating about this documentary too is that it included so much information that isn't out there at public news sources or media outlets. And to my pleasant surprise, guess where this documentary was from? Magellan TV. And as many of you guys know, Magellan TV is a wonderful partner of the 10 to Life channel, and they have supported us for a very long time here. So I was so excited to see that this documentary was on their platform. And that also ties in perfectly with today's case, because today's video is sponsored by Magellan TV. So if you haven't heard me talk about Magellan before, let me tell you about Magellan now. They are a new documentary streaming service. They have over 3,000 documentaries available to stream. And what's amazing is they're adding new content all the time, over 15 to 20 hours of new content every single week. And they have all different types of genres, not just true crime, although you know I always find myself in the true crime section, and that's actually how I stumbled across the documentary that I referenced so much in today's video called 21st Century Killers. And this really outlines how tech has now changed the game with crime out there. It has made it, unfortunately, easier for some people to target. It has made it easier to identify these perpetrators. Tech is now just at the forefront of criminal activity. And what I love most about Magellan TV is you can stream it from anywhere, anytime, on any device you want. And the quality is always crystal clear. It is so easy, so fantastic, and you will never have any shortage of things to binge because, as I said, they have so much content on there, over 3,000 titles. And because Magellan TV is such an amazing partner of the 10 to Life channel, they want to get you in on the action, and they are offering an amazing holiday promotion for you. And that promotion is buy one annual membership and get a gift card for an annual membership for free. For free. That makes the perfect gift for anybody in your life. A mother, a brother, a son, a neighbor's dog, whoever it is, they are going to love this gift because, as I mentioned, there is something for everybody on Magellan TV. All you have to do to capitalize on this offer is hit that link in the description box below, and then boom, you are set and you can thank me later. Happy early Christmas. Thanks Magellan TV for sponsoring today's video and for being such an amazing partner of the 10 to Life channel. We love you. All of my subscribers love you. They're always in my inbox telling me what they're watching, the newest thing they binged. So if you guys are trying it and you're brand new, let me know what you watch because I will always accept all the recommendations, all the things from Magellan. Thanks again, Magellan, and let's get into today's case. Today's case is about two young girls who weren't even 21 years old and both went missing from the University of Virginia. Now, as I said, these girls weren't even 21 years old, but they were stalked and targeted by an evil predator. And unfortunately, it would take years to get any solid leads as to who this monster was that was responsible for these girls' disappearance. Morgan Harrington was a 20-year-old student at University of Virginia, and she was said to have loved art, loved music, was very close with her family. She would go back home and see them once a week. They were very tight-knit and just all around a good girl. On October 17th, 2009, Morgan went with her three friends to the John Paul Jones Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia, and they went to go see a Metallica concert, enjoy some good music, hang out with friends, and have a great night out. During the opening act performance, Morgan told friends that she was going to go and use the ladies' room. However, when she didn't return, they called her wondering where she was. This phone call took place at approximately 8:48 p.m., and Morgan informed her friends that because she had left the venue to use the restroom, they had a strict no re-entry policy. policy so that she wasn't allowed to get back in. But she urged her friends to stay, to enjoy the concert, and that she would meet up with them later. She assured them that she would find her own way home and not to worry, and witnesses later stated that they did in fact see Morgan at 9:30 p.m. hitchhiking on a nearby bridge. There were also 2 witnesses that claimed to see her with 3 men after leaving the arena. But who were these 3 men that these witnesses said that they saw Morgan with? Because she went there with her friends who were still inside the venue listening to music. And then that other witness had said they saw her on the bridge alone hitchhiking for that ride home. That was the last time anybody ever heard from Morgan.
And Harrington are sleepless as they search for their daughter, Morgan.
Before she left here, she said, "Dad, you're going to be home tomorrow afternoon because when I get back, I need some help preparing for a math exam."
I have had many goodbyes. I don't take goodbyes lightly. I always walk her to the car, and she gets in the car, and as she's pulling out, she's always flashing those fingers at me, 2, 4, 1.
In fact, that was the last thing she said to me.
It was the last thing she said to me when she left, because that's just our little, your little code. I love you too much, forever, and once more than forever.
Morgan's purse containing her ID and her cell phone, which at the time in 2009, cell phones had batteries in the back. The batteries had been removed from her cell phone. All of this contents was located at the RV parking lot on campus at the athletic field. In addition to that, a bloody t-shirt that matched the one Morgan was wearing that evening to the concert was also discovered nearby. Now, this was a good sign because that meant that there was possible DNA to be collected that would lead police to whoever was responsible for this. And sure enough, it did. They got a hit on that t-shirt and matched DNA. However, the DNA that was matched was to a cold case from 2005. So although there was no name in the system that would lead them to who this perpetrator was, it did lead them to this cold case. And this was a cold case for an attempted assault. Now, this victim got away, luckily, and that meant that the police could question this victim to get a detailed breakdown and description of who this person was. After speaking with the victim, the police were able to come up with a composite sketch of this alleged perpetrator. Sadly, although all of these leads seemed promising, in addition to the sketch, just 3 months after going missing, Morgan's remains were found. Morgan's remains were discovered by a farmer on January 26, 2010, just about 10 miles from that arena where they went to see that Metallica concert. The remains were located in a very remote area more than a mile and a half across from the road. The farmer said, and I quote, "I looked down and saw what looked like a human skull, and my first thought was that it was Morgan Harrington." Although investigators did not release any information about her death, her parents confirmed that it had been very violent in nature and that several of Morgan's bones were broken. I mean, this was a brutal crime, guys. Her mother also confirmed that her daughter had been, unfortunately, brutally essayed. Crime Stoppers offered a $100,000 reward for any information leading to a conviction. And in addition to that $100,000, Metallica, the band that she went to see that night, also offered an additional $50,000.
Hi, I'm James of Metallica. Back in 2010, our band offered $50,000 to help catch the person responsible for murdering Morgan Harrington. Since that time, authorities uncovered new evidence linking her killer to a similar assault on a woman in Virginia. If you've seen the person in this sketch or have any information about this case or any others, please contact your local police.
This killing of Morgan provoked tons of fear within the community and the campus. And many parents throughout student meetings, community meetings, all sorts of gatherings, they were very transparent with the fear that they had. They wanted the media to know. They put national news broadcasts together, and they were just terrified that there might be a serial killer living in Virginia, especially because they believed this killer to be targeting young girls, young students from the University of Virginia. This fear was realized and was really heightened when another student just a few years later also went missing from the university. Hannah Graham was an 18-year-old British American student who was on her second year of school. She went missing on September 13th, 2014. Hannah was party hopping with a bunch of her friends that evening. They started at one party, they went to another like you do when you're in college, and Hannah's friends last heard from her through a text message at around 1:20 a.m. on September 13th. She informed her friends that she was on her way to another party, but unfortunately was lost at the time. Luckily, there was plenty of CCTV footage from Hannah that evening, and so police were really able to go back through, retrace her steps, see where she was last seen, and of course also look for anybody on camera that might seem suspicious. This footage shows that Hannah was last seen at a pizza restaurant before she and her classmate headed to that other party. They left at approximately 12:15 a.m. and Hannah appeared to be walking home on her own. Now, when this news hit the media, again, everybody's fear was realized and everybody's, they were just worried, they were panicked, everybody was in a state of fear. And going back to Morgan Harrington's case, her mom spoke out because to her, this was all too reminiscent of what they had experienced just a few years earlier.
Now, Morgan's mother, Jill Harrington, founder of Help Save the Next Girl. Jill, good morning.
Good morning.
You lived this nightmare yourself and you've been living it for so long. You had to be heartbroken to hear that here we go again, it looks like.
Yeah, there's so many young women from our part of the country, our part of Virginia, missing and or murdered just since Morgan was killed. And it is gut-wrenching to think that another family is going through that anguish. We just are sick about it. It's unfathomable. Dan and I keep looking at each other and thinking, how did we get through it? And then we realize we're not through it. You never get through it. It never goes away. And I hate to think that Hannah's family has that path ahead of them for the rest of their lives. We really are hoping the community can band together, give more information, and we can have a good resolution for the Graham family.
According to surveillance footage and witness testimony, among the last places that Hannah was seen was at a place called Tempo Restaurant. And a witness said that a man was talking with Hannah, and he appeared to have his arm holding around her, and that Hannah apparently looked very intoxicated. This witness also says that the man that Hannah appeared to be with did not look friendly, and that's a direct quote. After leaving the bar, a witness saw Hannah standing by an orange vehicle and heard her say, "I'm not getting in the car with you." After approximately about 10 days of being missing, on September 25th, Charlottesville Police Chief Timothy Long said that he believed that Hannah was either in Charlottesville or one of the surrounding 9 counties. He also asked property owners to search for her on their own land. In addition to privately searching the land, they organized huge search parties with over 1,000 people and spent over 44 hours searching for Hannah. So now 2 young students from the University of Virginia are missing, one confirmed to have been killed. What was going on here, and who was this person? And guys, why was he targeting these innocent young girls? And how has he not gotten caught yet? Well, luckily, there is about to be a break in the case thanks to that DNA evidence, the CCTV footage, and witness testimony. Using that composite sketch that was in the Morgan Harrington case and that was really developed because of the cold case from 2005, police were able to match that along with CCTV footage, and they officially named on September 19th a person of interest. The police saw Hannah leaving the bar with this man and concluded that Hannah may have gone into that orange vehicle with him. The police searched this man's car and his apartment, but at the time they declined to release his identity publicly and they didn't make any arrest. On September 22nd, just a couple of days later, police again searched this person's apartment. During that search, they took items of clothing from his apartment, but didn't elaborate on the importance of these items. However, police do describe this as a major break in the case, and not long after, we learned that the results revealed Hannah's DNA on a pair of this man's shorts and DNA in his car. Now, by this time, the police was ready to make that public identification, and they identified this man as a man by the name of Jesse Matthews Jr., who was in his mid-30s. Now, at this point, they have pretty much a solid case. They have the CCTV footage, they have DNA, they have witness testimony, they have all sorts of different things. And Jesse must have known that the walls were closing in from the previous searches and that it was going to yield some evidence, because by this point, he had withdrawn all of the money from his bank account and he fled. 2 days later, on September 21st, the police issued an arrest warrant for reckless driving by Jesse. And on September 23rd, the police announced that Jesse had been charged with abduction with the intent to defile. And luckily, just 1 day later, on September 24th, the police, in a joint press conference with the FBI, announced that he had been arrested in a remote area of Galveston, Texas. He was on a remote beach, which apparently is said to have been, sparsely populated, but yet a woman did recognize him.
Are you Jesse Matthew Jr.?
Yeah.
Mr. Matthew, my name is Judge Henry. You have 2 charges this morning. You have got a fugitive from justice warrant out of Virginia for abduction of a person with intent to defile. You have got a Galveston County charge of false information to a peace officer. Your bond is denied on the fugitive from justice warrant. Okay, you're not entitled to a court-appointed attorney on the fugitive from justice warrant except to fight extradition.
And sir, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Like they took all my clothes and they got me sleeping on a hard thing. I don't feel like I should be able to have some kind of clothes.
You appear to me to be dressed in a jumpsuit.
Well, once I get back, they're going to take my jumpsuit off and tell me I have to take my jumpsuit off. And
Medical has to clear you out of medical. That's a requirement of medical. So once medical sees you and clears you and they move you to another cell, then they'll give you the jumpsuit back.
is this for Virginia?
Yes.
So what is the Virginia one again?
The Virginia warrant is a fugitive from justice warrant. The underlying charge is abduction of a person with intent to defile.
Right there.
Now I was going to have you sign 2 times saying that you're not requesting a court-appointed attorney this morning.
What? I'm sorry. If I sign it?
I'm going to ask you to sign either way, either requesting a court-appointed attorney or declining consideration for a court-appointed attorney.
Oh, okay.
If you request one, the only thing that attorney can do for you is challenge the validity of the warrant and fight your extradition back to Virginia.
Okay, guys, so listening to that, pre-trial hearing and that information, my mind was just immediately blown because this guy is seriously complaining about his sleeping arrangements and the surface being too hard. And what about my clothes? Just kind of not quite understanding or grasping the reality of what the situation is. Or is it that he knows what the reality is, but he's too selfish and narcissistic to have any sort of emotion? I don't know. This video just immediately, not only did it puzzle me, but it kind of made me feel cringe inside. What this guy is clearly only cares about himself. It just does not sit right with me. It was reported just a few days later that some of the forensic evidence that was taken in the case of Morgan Harrington did in fact match Jesse. Sources close to the Hannah Graham investigation also added that Morgan too interacted with Jesse on that night that she disappeared. But remember, at this point, we still don't know where Hannah is. We know that Jesse appears to be good for her disappearance, but we still don't know where she is, if she's alive, if she's safe, and what's happened to her. That all came to a screeching halt just 3 weeks later when remains belonging to Hannah Graham were discovered. These remains were discovered on an abandoned property. Now, because of the level of decomposition and the time that had elapsed, there was a press conference held that day in which the police chief said that they had not yet 100% confirmed the remains to belong to Hannah. However, authorities did notify Hannah's parents of the discovery. And we have seen this in a few cases, and I think too, just most recently, the Brian Laundrie case. Although it's pretty much, the writing is on the wall, you have a feeling, you know who the remains belong to. And I'm referencing as to when they found Gabby Petito's remains, they still hadn't made a conclusive medical match at this point. But they were confident in their discovery, and so they notified the parents, as did the police do in the Gabby Petito case.
I'll go the Charlottesville Police Department. It was some 35 days ago, some 5 weeks, since 18-year-old University of Virginia student Hannah Graham disappeared from our downtown pedestrian mall. Thousands of hours have been spent by literally hundreds of law enforcement and civilian volunteers in an effort to find Hannah. We think perhaps today proved their worth. Sometime before noon today, a search team from the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department was searching an abandoned property along Old Lynchburg Road in southern Albemarle County when they discovered what appears to be human remains.
The remains were sent to the chief medical examiner's office in Richmond for identification, and just a few days later, it was positively identified to be the remains belonging to Hannah. It also released the cause of death to be homicide by an undetermined manner. Now, although the details about these 2 girls' brutal death were still very vague, we were about to get those answers because Jesse was going to share just what happened. Hannah's remains were found about 5 miles from where Morgan's remains were found, so not very far away. It was then publicly announced that the police had also linked Jesse to the killing of Morgan Harrington. They say that they believe that Jesse, who was also a part-time taxi driver, picked Morgan up that evening as she was looking for a ride home and then attacked her. They also emphasized that he is a dangerous man with a history of violent SA. After the connection was made between the 2 girls' disappearance and ultimate deaths, more details surfaced regarding what horrific circumstances took place late those evenings. And the medical examiner says that in regards to Morgan Harrington, that no underpants were recovered and many parts of her clothing were missing. The documents also state that her cause of death was homicide by an undetermined origin. Now, the medical examiner also said she had a spinal fracture on her upper left arm and 2 rib fractures, all of which occurred at or near the time of death. The papers also say that Morgan's skull had a fracture that appeared to have happened at the time of death. I mean, a very brutal and painful attack. Morgan's father later made a statement, and he says, "We cannot comprehend the selfish and inhumane action that took place that evening, and we anguish over the suffering Morgan experienced that night. We have seen Morgan's broken bones and cannot comprehend what one human could have so desperately needed to have hurt and killed our daughter." So some more answers here are surfacing with what happened to Morgan, but we still are unclear of what happened to Hannah, and this is when the medical examiner publicly shares the information. And the medical examiner says that Hannah's left nasal bone had a piece of bone that was completely broken away, and the most likely specific cause of death is either strangulation or suffocation. So now you have this man who is tied to not only 2, but 3 brutal crimes. One of them, remember, was from 2005 and he got away with it. And the other 2, he was escalating and then unfortunately, took the lives of these 2 young women who weren't even 21 and haven't even lived life yet. But how many more victims were there? And we did get a little bit of insight, and it starts to kind of paint a picture as to pattern and history. Over a decade earlier, it was reported that Jesse had allegedly been accused 2 different times of SA at other campuses in which he was a student attending school. After each allegation, he left the school immediately and went to a new campus. The reported SAs occurred within an 11-month period of each other. And now this infuriates me because, again, we know that there is a widespread problem right now with campus attacks, particularly SA, and we know that it commonly gets swept under the rug. There's more cover-ups, especially if it's athletes or fraternity people involved. Don't even get me started. We know that this is a problem because it's a ton of people drinking. Their judgment is impaired. There's opportunity, and it so often just gets swept under the rug, covered up, and quiet. Now, for these 2 alleged incidents, if there were more pressure applied, I just wonder, could these senseless murders have been avoided of these 2 young girls? Possibly, because to me, it appears as though starting, over 10 years ago at this point, that he was just slowly escalating. That he was getting his toes wet with essays on campus and attempted assaults, and then gradually is getting away with it more and more to where his confidence is building, to where ultimately then he escalates and jumps over to the other side of this, where he actually, in fact, starts beginning to take lives. On September 15th, 2015, Jesse Matthew was formally charged with first-degree murder and abduction with intent to defile in the murder of Morgan Harrington. Fast forward to 2016, and on March 2nd, after Jesse pleaded guilty to the 2014 murder of Hannah Graham and the 2009 murder of Morgan Harrington, a judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences, with parole completely off the table. Under the plea agreement, Jesse gives up his right to appeal, and he wouldn't be eligible for geriatric release. And as part of the agreement, the court heard how both Hannah and Morgan had desperately tried to fight off their attacker, and that Jesse then shattered their bones, discarded their bones and their broken bodies when he was done with them. During sentencing, the judge says that Jesse was a violent SA predator and that he was a modern-day Jekyll and Hyde, meaning that he had this part-time life of this taxi driver, nice guy, friend, charismatic person, but then on the other side was this vicious predator. There are also thought to be several other victims of Jesse's out there, and that this isn't the end of it. It's just what they know and what they were able to catch. But they do believe that he has several other victims out there. In 2019, divine justice came in, and Jesse was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He is currently being treated for that and was transferred to another prison for treatment. These cases just break my heart because I truly believe that they could have been avoided had there been more pressure applied in the beginning when the allegations first surfaced back when he was a student. And I don't think it had to have gotten to this. And it just makes me so mad because we see situations like, who's that guy? What's his name? Brock Turner, who was a student, a 19-year-old student, I believe, at Stanford in California. And he essayed another student on campus, and while he ultimately was held accountable and was found guilty, his sentencing was like this big. And it's like, you're just kind of allowing and giving free rein for this person to go out and do it again or escalate. And I know there's a ton of conflicting opinions on that, but that's where I stand, because again, we just see things like this time after time after time. I think his total sentence was 6 months in jail and then like 3 years of probation or something like that for essay on a 22-year-old. I mean, how does that punishment fit the crime? And again, you're just kind of allowing this person to realize that it was a slap on the wrist. They're now confident, they may escalate, and it's just awful. What do you guys make of this case? And what do you guys make of what we are just continuing to hear happen on our country's campuses? Is there anything we can do about it? How do we raise awareness? And how do we make sure that these people are actually held accountable so that it doesn't get to this point where it's a serial predator? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You know I love hearing from you. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this difficult case with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. If you haven't subscribed yet and you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button below. It's free. It just lets you know when new videos get posted. And as always, if you want more access to true crime all the time, you can join our 24/7 group chat through Discord, and all you have to do is go to that link in the description box below. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today, guys. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up on your way out, and I will see you at the next case. Until then, stay safe.